Howdy folks, Jambareeqi here, and welcome to another episode of Jambareeqi Orange, the show where my patrons decide what I review. The options this time included Megan, SORA, Hotel Transylvania, Wendell and Wild, The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad, Trick or Treat Scooby-Doo, and Evil Dead Rise. They chose Ichabod and Mr. Toad. This Disney package film from the 1940s adapts two classic pieces of literature, The Wind in the Willows by Kenneth Grahame, and The Legend of Sleepy Hollow by Washington Irving. It's a strange combination of tales that's often puzzled Disney fans. Sure, the film at least tries to connect these unrelated novels in its own way.
If you were asked to choose the most fabulous character in English literature, who would it be?
But I think it's still kind of a stretch. Let's first take a look at The Wind in the Willows. Mr. Toad has just developed a new mania for motorcars, so his supportive, caring friends seclude him while he calms down. However, Toad escapes, falls in love with a shiny red car, which is owned by some weasels, and trades his iconic Toad Hall for the flashy vehicle, with Winky the bartender serving as the deal's witness. Unfortunately, it turns out that the car was stolen by the weasels, and Toad is accused as the thief. During the courtroom proceeding, Winky takes the stand and frames Toad for the weasels' carjacking, so Toad's friends try to free Toad from prison and get the deed for Toad Hall back. This is a very revised version of The Wind in the Willows that abridges all of the story beats down to half an hour. While said chopping of the novel's material results in a fast pace that fits the wild lifestyle of Mr. Toad, it also means that there's very little time to take a breather. We don't get to truly soak in the countryside atmosphere, enjoy quiet time with Mole and Rat, or explore Toad Hall itself. I'd actually say that the world building takes a backseat to wacky cartoon antics. You could even argue that this is more Looney Tunes than Wind in the Willows.
Holy moly! That's better.
Such a wacky direction has its ups and downs. On the one hand, this short makes for a great screwball comedy, thanks to its zippy energy and witty British banter.
I want you fellows to meet my noble steed, Cyril.
Aye, that's me. A bit of a trotter, a bit of a rotter. How do you do, how do you do, how do you do?
I think that the comedy really hinges on the strong, varied personalities of the cast, each one ranging in patience and maturity, and the short knows how to utilise them as straight men, annoying comic reliefs, or oblivious innocents, letting their natural personalities brush off or against each other. The courtroom scene in particular works to the advantage of the short sense of humour, as it pits a stuffy lawyer against the charismatic Toad and his witty steed, Cyril. I'd go as far as to say that this whole scene steals the short.
Then how did he get a motor car?
The only way a gentleman gets anything, the honest way.
And what is the honest way?
Ha ha, I thought you wouldn't know that, Governor.
Your Lordship,
On the other hand, because comedy is the emphasis, the short kind of fails as a morality fable. I mean, the cartoon introduces Toad as this selfish and childish rich brat who causes public damage and stresses out his well-meaning friends, setting up the flaws that he needs to fix and foreshadowing his character arc ahead.
You've got to stop this foolishness. No, you must.
No, I won't do it.
Your reckless behavior is giving us animals
won't even
ability. You're fast becoming a menace to society.
Then, once Toad ends up in jail, he's lost all of his dignity and freedom, his trademark cockiness drained by the dank and damp cell he's trapped in. The narrator then explains that his prison experience has humbled him, and that he's a changed character. But there's a difference between telling and showing development, because only seconds later, he's back to being his impulsive self, and showing that he hasn't really changed.
Careful, lads. There's a guard. I'll pop him off. Stop, Toad.
Don't shoot.
Hey, the cartoon actually ends with Toad finding yet another reckless mania, to the dismay and terror of everyone around him, while the narrator explains that it's his immaturity that makes him a fabulous character, as if being selfish and juvenile makes him endearingly quirky.
But let's weigh our judgment carefully, we moles and rats and badgers. Really now, don't we envy him a bit? I know I do. And so when we speak of fabulous characters, the most fabulous of all will always be, to me at least, the master of Toad Hall.
It begs the question why the short even bothered setting up a redemption arc for Toad, because the cartoon clearly wanted us to sympathise with Toad's friends and resent Toad for the stress he causes them.
Why did I ever assume the responsibility of looking after them?
I was disappointed that the Weasels were sidelined as villains. Sure, they got to be sneaky and sleazy, plus it's fun seeing them partying after their success, but they were more lackey minions to the original human character of Winky. Winky himself is sort of a twist villain. I wouldn't exactly call him a remarkably clever twist villain though, because he literally twirls his mustache like a silent movie bad guy when we meet him, and his evil scheme mainly revolves around coincidental conveniences that are handed to him.
And he called on old Winky the barman to pop over and witness the deed.
However, Winky is still very entertaining as a cartoony antagonist, with his obnoxious smirk that makes you want to punch him, and a slimy style of character animation. He has this pantomime appeal to his villainy that's bound to get kids hissing.
Well, Governor, you tried to sell me a stolen motor car. That's to deliver a lie, you monkey-faced little robot.
So yeah, this cartoon's strength lies in its witty comedy, zany action pieces, and British charms, but it kind of falls apart as a lesson on mature responsibility and appreciating friends. I guess it all depends on what you want from a Disney version of Wind in the Willows at the end of the day. Right, let's now move on to Sleepy Hollow. When the strange Ichabod Crane moves to Sleepy Hollow to become the local headmaster, he gains an unlikely popularity, which makes the town's men very jealous. Then, the headmaster falls for the beautiful Katrina Van Tassel, but he has to fight the local hunk Brom for her attention. This cartoon starts off kind of charming. I was immediately intrigued by how the eccentric Ichabod's introduction could potentially shake up this town. There was also this compelling mystery to how such an odd fellow was able to win over all the local ladies. A seed had been planted for a unique and captivating tale in the making. Unfortunately, all that potential is washed away in the sand by Katrina. Once she enters the picture, the film becomes far less interesting. Suddenly, it's less about a quirky stranger's relationship with a humble town, and more of a Popeye vs. Bluto cartoon, which does inspire a creative back and forth fight for attention, but I'm nobody to root for, because everybody here sucks. So I was just bored by this rivalry. Ichabod is an opportunist who only treats his pupils nicely to get free meals, plus only values Katrina for her wealthy riches and pretty face.
Who can resist your grace, your charm? And who can resist your father's farm? Boy, what a setup. There's gold in them acres and that ain't hay.
Look, I appreciate the twist that our protagonist is actually a villain. That was a big risk for the Disney brand. But this doesn't really add up to much when our potential real hero isn't actually a good guy. Sure, Brom is very polite to Katrina and doesn't just want her for her riches, but there's no evidence that he values her more than her pretty face. The narrator describes Brom as a well-meaning hero, but we mainly see him harassing people for giggles and scaring men away from Katrina. I would also not say that he's the better man in the boys' competition for Katrina. He could be just as mean and immature as Ichabod. Heck, he's particularly cruel to a plus-sized lady who just wants to dance. I don't think he's the refreshing subversion of the burly jock trope that I've seen a lot of people credit him for being. I just see him as the lesser of two evils. Katrina herself isn't much better than the other two either. Not only does she only value men if they slave after her, but she's also willing to stir the pot between Ichabod and Brom, which is arguably sociopathic. She's very much a 1940s caricature of a female stereotype that's only here to be a trophy for the guys. So yeah, the middle act of this short just doesn't do anything for me. I don't care who wins between these two idiots, and I resent Katrina for not taking responsibility for the chaos she's causing. Thankfully, things do pick up when Brom taunts the superstitious Ichabod by telling the spooky legend of the Headless Horseman, all for a really engaging and catchy song, in which Brom creatively antagonizes Ichabod under Halloweeny lighting.
The Headless Horseman needs a head with a hip, hip, and a clippity clap. He's out looking for a top chop.
Then, while Ichabod is walking home from the party, the short suddenly becomes a full-on horror movie. This terrific finale goes ham on Ichabod's fear, panic, and anxiety, while the environment plays tricks on him and the wildlife taunts him with his own name, building up a distressing atmosphere oozing with eerie spookiness. It's great horror filmmaking that just happens to be made by the House of Mouse. Then, out of the blue, the horseman finally emerges with a horrifying cackle that'll make your skin crawl. Inspiring a chase sequence that will have you gripped at your seat as an already very, very anxious Ichabod races away. I also love how the movie ends on a hauntingly ambiguous note, showing us a realistically detailed painting of Ichabod's abandoned hat, while the narrator teases the believable rumour that he's actually still alive. It's a shame that the horseman isn't the focus of the short, because he's the highlight of this cartoon. Sadly, Walt was clearly more invested in developing a soap opera love triangle between three unlikable characters than building on the fun Sleepy Hollow legend. To conclude, The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad must have made for a delightful escapist cinema experience for audiences during the war, with its great sense of humour, colourful characters, and exciting set pieces. However, I would not say that it stood the test of time, and I can understand why it's fallen into obscurity. It's an oddly packaged bumper film made up of two very uneven and kind of dated animated shorts, with its celebration of fictional characters that are fabulous tasting bitter because our examples are bleakly narcissistic people. It's got quite the identity crisis going for it. Part of me understands why Disney's marketing team struggled to advertise it to today's audience, and once resorted to selling the shorts as solo features. I think it could have done with at least one extra short to beef up its collection, and it really needed a catchier title that's not a mouthful to say, like Silly Stories or Fabulous Tales. So, have you seen this movie? If so, what did you think of it? Let everyone know in the comments below. What am I going to be reviewing in the next Jambareeqi Orange? Well, as always, that's entirely up to my patrons. The options for December include Die Hard, Home Alone, Casper's Haunted Christmas, Miracle on 34th Street, Frosty the Snowman, Mickey's Once Upon a Christmas, and Sonic Christmas Blast. That's a pretty festive selection, am I right? Now, don't forget that you need to be a patron to vote on this poll. What is a patron? Don't worry, I'll explain.
This is my Patreon. It's a site for my fans to support me financially on through a monthly basis. Those who donate are called patrons. Patrons can donate as much as they want and are welcome to stop donating anytime. In return for their generosity, patrons are given exciting rewards based on their pledge amount. These rewards include early access to my videos before they go up publicly on YouTube, behind the scenes content, their name in the end credits of my videos, a chance to request a review of anything at all, and much more.
I'm very excited to see what my patrons vote for. I've been Jambareeqi. Cheerio, folks.